Okay, so typically people start scouting in the summer, although there's a whole cycle to it and you really shouldn't stop. A lot of people take time off in the winter, spring, and at least early summer. And so when you start back up most of the time, it's really easy to overlook one thing. Let's take a look here at number one. So the first thing you want to do is get the big picture. It's not diving in and going deep, although you can do some of that in the summer to scout some areas in particular. But I'm just going and driving around here in the Midwest particularly, and you're looking at the ag and the woodlots and seeing how that has changed from last year. I don't want to assume that last year's stand locations are going to be good for this year, because a huge change has taken place, and that is the crop rotations. In that first week of season, I'm really trying to key in on that and figure out what is going on now. And so I'm not going to dive in. I'm not going to put out trail cameras yet. I'm just trying to get the 30,000 foot view, the big picture of square acres. Not just where I'm hunting, but the square acres and everything around it, whether it be private or public, and what is going on currently. And I'm going to try to predict how that will affect deer movement and where I should even think about putting trail cameras, right? So I'm looking at that first. I'm not really observing deer, although I'm not avoiding that. I'm just trying to get a lay of the land first off, and that's really going to help you and really where you want to start. So number two is planning for this year. And I kind of mentioned it, but it is really worth repeating that a lot of times we can get focused on where the deer were last year or some good encounter I had previous years, and that may or may not be the case. You know, I have dozens and dozens of stand locations on multiple properties that I could potentially hunt, but that doesn't mean that this year, you know, where I saw the big one last year or where the deer were last year is where they will be this year. In all honesty, I've never shot a big buck here in Michigan in the same stand year after year. It's always shifting and changing. And I don't want to get stuck to a stand location. I want to actually look at how deer are going to use the land, use the crops and the cover and all that stuff this current year. Okay, so if you like this video, I invite you to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our other great high IQ content, and also check out our podcast, which is wherever you can listen, and also on our YouTube page. And do you know your deer IQ? Do you think you're deer smart? Take the deer IQ test and find out. It's quick and easy, and share it with a buddy and see if they did better than you or you beat them. Okay, number three, as I kind of said, is predicting movement. Now this is really important because you don't want to be one step behind the deer. You want to be ahead of them all throughout the season, right? And so during the summer, I'm trying to predict this movement now and for that first week of season when I can get some really quick strikes at these deer and maybe a handful of deer that I picked out. And even if I go back in history, if I have history in a place, I can say, well, when beans were here or when corn was here, deer tended to do these things. And that's part of it too, if you have that history. If it's new, you know, you're going to have to do that prediction now. But also some other things you're picking up. Like last night I was out driving around doing this, and I noticed one spot I can hunt last year was all corn. And that made it easy to get in and out of these locations, woodlots and fields. Now it's pretty much all beans, and that really changes the game. That's an early food source, so it might be good that first week or so, but that makes it hard to get in and out because you can't hide, right? Coming and going through bean fields is tough, so I really got to think about that. Secondly, as I look at this, you know, prediction, I'm also noticing the stages the crops are in. So right now, I noticed in that particular location that there were some beans that were further along, and the deer were hitting that currently, and there's some that weren't. They got planted late or something. But I noticed that because that late planted beans, I'm going to predict that that's where the deer are going to come later in the fall, like early October, that first week of season, because that's going to reach maturity later. And the stuff that's more mature now is going to be kind of dried up. And so I'm predicting all those things even before I've scouted deer. And that's going to kind of determine where I'm going to potentially focus my scouting for that first week place trail cameras to get more intel, and then potentially hunt from there. And so this first summer scouting stuff isn't random at all, and it's really important that you start with this big picture view of the landscape and crops and things like that and what's currently going on. Okay, so those are my things to look for when you first start early season scouting. What do you think? Put it in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next Deer IQ High IQ Topics video.